It's a baby calf.
What does a cow say? So, what has monetary inflation done to your business?
Real, that's a really good question. I'm thinking what the biggest benefit we're going to see is I don't think we saw it in our bull sale as far as increased prices, but I do think we've got a competitive advantage because we're not using a lot of diesel fuel to do anything, and we're not necessarily needing new equipment or parts. You know, we're really minimizing those kind of things.
So you're saying that you as a low-cost producer, that you are focused on your inputs, that you're in the input business, and because you don't have iron and fuel and fertilizers, that monetary inflation is actually giving you a competitive advantage to the guy across the fence. That's how I take it.
That's right. That's my overall assumption. We don't have to see cattle price inflation necessarily to keep up with the other inflation if we're low enough cost producer. We're able to harvest the grass with cattle without much of an increase in our inventory for parts or seed or fertilizer. Fertilizer is a big one because our nutrition is being cycled through the cow, and so you know we're not purchasing fertilizer.
You're not hoping for and dependent on $1,600 calves right now, like a lot of guys are. Their last saving grace is going to be going back to $1,600 calves, and you're telling me that that's not the biggest priority. It is significant, but it's not the most significant issue in your business right now.
That's right. And that's not necessarily, let alone the numbers. The primary thing there is focusing on things that you can have an influence on or control. And we can't control the market as an individual producer. We can't control inflation as an individual producer, but we can control our costs. We can take steps to start to control our costs. And to me, those are the things we need to focus on. Four-wheeler.
Is your buddy Hank playing out there? Is he gonna find that hot wire too? Going back to not being dependent on $1,600 calves or rain, so you're kind of you're not dependent on both of those two, the outputs, which is market price, and the yield, the weight of your calves. You've sold bulls. You have a branded program there. How does that correlate with the ups and downs, the cattle cycle?
Well, we're definitely subject to the ups and downs of the cattle cycle because we're selling bulls to a lot of commercial producers that are very subject to it. And so, without a doubt, our demand, if there's a lot of cattle leave our area, there's a less demand for bulls, and it's as simple as that, actually. So it does affect us, like in our bull sale, where we kind of reached a maximum, and we were running short of buyers. So I think, on the other hand, you know, we lease bulls, and this spring, as we've gotten some moisture, people have called and are wanting to lease bulls. So having some kind of a diverse revenue flow and trying to diversify how your revenue flow comes in is also a critical component. And I just tend to try to do everything I can to stay away from, to put distance between me and the commodity market.
So talking about diversification, you're still selling beef direct to consumer, right?
We are doing some. We haven't had a lot of kill slots, so it's been very minimal.
That's been a challenge for a lot of people right now, for
right.
sure, is the kill slots.
Right.
But that is a hedge. I mean,
absolutely it is. It absolutely is. If we could get kill slots, you know, we could castrate our bull calves, make steers out of them, and a year and a half from now, they'd probably be worth $3,500 to $4,000 in the beef. So, or you know, probably $4,500 in the retail side. So, I think that is a hedge. That's like a backup plan.
How are you planning for interest, 10%, 12% interest. How are you planning for coming back to reality from all this crazy spending and government printing money that we've been going through?
I guess from our perspective, we've got our mortgage locked in at something around 3%. So I think locking that down is one critical step that we took in the past couple of years to make sure that we had that secured.
What about an operating line of credit?
And operating, that's again where if we can diversify our income at different times of the year, we can minimize that operating.
Okay, so you're not carrying as high of a balance on
That's
that
right.
operating line.
That's right. Yep.
You're not selling your whole crop at once in October, is what you're saying.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah. There's been so much conversation about drought and about how dry it is, and everybody's looking at forecasts, looking at long-term forecasts, looking at when it's going to rain again. And at least in this area, to me, if you look at past years, 7 out of 10 years are dry, and it's foolish to plan for the 3 years that aren't dry. And so if you don't plan for the dry years, that's a vital flaw in your major planning or your big picture outlook as to matching your resource with what you're trying to get off of it. And the other component of that, and the more I go down this soil health journey, the more I'm realizing that the precipitation we get, while it's very, very important, it may actually only be, I don't know, I'd go out and I'd estimate maybe 50 to 70% of the equation, because we can conserve moisture in the soil if we can increase our organic matter and if we can leave cover and if we can do those things. So when we get precipitation, we can hang on to it and make it plant available. And I think that's just a big, big part of the equation that's really not emphasized enough. In a way, leaving cover, leaving those kind of things, or leaving cover and leaving adequate, building your organic matter so you can hold on to more moisture, really contributes towards your resiliency to drought. Now, the example I use is if you take a piece of plywood and put it on, just lay it on a piece of ground or on top of the ground, you know, it's going to rain on that plywood, but it's not going through it. And it's just about any day of the year you pick up that piece of plywood, there's moisture under it. And so that kind of exemplifies or demonstrates a real layman's way of what I'm talking about.
How about the cattle cycle? A lot of people are talking about record low cattle inventory. Now might not be the worst time to put $700 of hay into your cow this year, because we are sure to see calf prices go up, cow prices go up. You can't buy back in because we're going to have all-time lows in the U.S. cattle herd. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's kind of that's a big gamble, because once you've run that feed through a cow, that money's spent. You better hope the market turns and does what you're predicting it does.
So you're putting all your risk, your exposure into all your eggs in one basket?
I think you're kind of rolling the wheel. Yeah, I really do. I see the logic in it, and I think the same way. I agree with that thought. I guess our hedge against that started 10 years ago, and you know, where we've had stockpile forage in front of us, we actually have increased our cow herd a little bit this past year. So with that said, if that happens, we'll be able to sell some females as well, you know, and some bred females. And so with that in mind, you know, it's positioning yourself for those kind of things I believe is very critical.
What about the lease market? Do you see through this inflationary period pasture lease going up? More landowners have more negotiating power?
I don't really know on that. That'd be a really hard one to predict. I think, Colton. I think that could vary area by area and landowner to landowner.
Well, what are Roger's final words of wisdom here?
You know, I don't think I really have any words of wisdom, but there certainly is. You can only manage on hope and promise for a certain amount of time, and if you're stocked beyond what hope and promise has to offer, there's going to be a cost to that ultimately. And I just think if you need to get rid of livestock to take care of your land, that's the thing to do. And whatever the markets are going to do, if you can be a low-cost producer, you can still make money doing that.
Well, thank you, Roger. We look forward to staying updated with you and Betsy. Always enjoyed your podcast episode. Was one of the most highly recommended. So thanks for coming on.
I hope we could duplicate it. But no, Coulter, I appreciate it, and it'll be fun how it's received out here in the country.
Hey, Bobby, what do cows say? Good job. What do cows say? Good job.